find a name for us.
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever in the world you may be. Welcome back to our very interesting collaboration. I have with me Lt General PR Shankar, Advaita Kala, and it's me, Sandeep Unnithan, here on a Saturday morning from New Delhi. We're talking about the issues of the week, and one particular issue that's caught our attention. It's not so much about geopolitics, but it's more about the kind of online hate that we're seeing towards Indians. In fact, a lot of statistics point to the fact that 2023 was when these first trends about Indians being attacked online started manifesting themselves. And of course, 2025, we saw it burst out into the open. We don't know if it has to do with the new government that came in the United States, but we're going to talk all about that this morning. Welcome to my co-panelists, Jan Shankar, Advaita, good to see you back here again. I want to start by asking Advaita this. Advaita, you're a social media personality. You're on social media all the time. I see you. But are you seeing this? Are you detecting what I am? This wave of hatred against Indians. Are Indians the new Jews?
Without that much money, I would say yes. In a lot of ways, they are, and specifically Hindus. I think there is a tendency to kind of characterize us in certain ways, and that has seen an increase since Prime Minister Modi has come in 2014. Because what happened at that point of time was we saw India really redefining the language it uses with the world. Primarily earlier, it was more of a benefactor and someone seeking sort of interaction, where we were seeking from other countries, can you do this for us? Can you do that for us? And with Prime Minister Modi, we've seen that needle shift. We've moved into a more kind of equal and a transactional relationship to whatever extent it is possible, given the dynamics. And that would, of course, ruffle feathers because, it's like a Hindi saying, na, meri billi mujhko meow. So in that sort of way, I think there was a tendency to see India as somebody who they would have to do for, or what we call the white man's burden. So although we were a post-colonial society, in many ways in the international forums, we were still behaving like a colonial society in a sense. And I'm not saying this to be very harsh, but I'm saying this to explain the dynamics. It's quite likely, we had a huge population. We weren't doing economically that well. We had our border tensions. So maybe, we weren't really in a place to be more assertive. But Prime Minister Modi, with his personal attitude, and I say this so often, na jhukunga na jhukne dunga, that sort of approach to interaction started shifting the narrative, and steadily, to the extent that now 10 years plus on, we find ourselves in a very different position in the world. For one thing, we've become a sort of benchmark for post-colonial societies in the global south. They're all looking at us with an interest. You may have China, who's investing heavily, for example, in the African continent. But when it comes to relatability, when it comes to challenges, when it comes to pursuing a democratic way forward, India is the example that they turn to, not China. And America isn't quite that connected with the global south in the way it used to be. It's becoming exceedingly isolationist and focused only on its geopolitical issues when it comes to international relations, either containing a country or picking sides in a battle. That's really where all its attention is going. So this space is open, and India has very naturally filled it because we come from that experience, from that lived experience. So we can connect. So that's a huge chunk of the world. Over 70% of the world was colonized, if you think about it. The United States was colonized. So, there is a huge amount of resonance with India, which could be unsettling, and not to mention our economy growing and, climbing up the charts. And
sorry to interrupt you. I want to bring in Jan Shankar on this. Thanks for that, the opening, setting this up. But Jan Shankar, you buy what Advaita is saying, the fact that it has to do with India's rising prominence on the world stage now, the fact that we are now more assertive, the economy is larger, it's growing, or do you think it's something else that we can't really put our finger on?
Yeah. Look, I go with what Advaita is saying to some extent, but the fundamental factors are different. The fundamental factor is migration.
Right.
The fundamental factor is demographic changes happening all over the world. Right? As Western societies, their demographies are shrinking, their demographies are changing. There are societal changes happening in those societies. As
Right.
also, even in the Chinese society, the demography is changing. The one society which is expanding is the Indian society. I will not even, yeah, the Indian society is expanding, the demography is expanding, and you have got a socially mobile society, aspirational lot of people who are going. That's the first demographic factor. Historically, Indians have been migrants, hugely
Right.
migrant, right?
Yeah.
And we have a diaspora all over the world, and they've prospered wherever they've gone. Okay. And but the difference between the earlier migration and this has to be understood. Earlier migrants went there at a different social strata,
Right.
went up the value chain, and
They were blue
mingled with
collar,
their societies.
primarily blue collar migrants.
I mean, I will not put it blue collar, but they were a different variety. Let me put it this way. And they went all over the world, Africa, South Africa, you go America, Caribbean, the whole lot. Now, today's diaspora and migrants are of a different variety, right? They're parachuting into the top echelons of that society. More
Right.
educated, more mobile, more expressive, more assertive,
Right.
and more politically aware. And you combine it with the rise of India, you're a wanted lot. You can't be ignored. You might not
Yeah.
be liked, but you can't be ignored. And you are needed because the very skills, the very value systems which you get to the other societies are absent there. And those
Right.
societies actually thrived because of those values. So
Right.
you're filling a huge gap in those societies. And this society, earlier people, they used to say, okay, we'll meld with the other societies. Today, the pace of migration is so fast. The pace
Right.
of going into that society is so fast. We don't have time. There's no time for integration into that society.
Right.
Okay. And you want to continue with your modes, so there is a two-way affair, and they are also not prepared because they've seen an earlier generation of migration which, went with them. They behaved the way Romans do. Today, a lot
Right.
of us don't want to behave, in Rome the way Romans do.
We
But
don't
that's
want to be
fact. It's a fact.
Romans when we are in Rome.
We don't want to be Romans. Simple. We don't want to be Romans. We want to be Indians, right?
Right.
So
I'm sure Advaita
there
will
is
have
a
a view on that. Yes.
no. I completely agree with what I mean. I'm not, these are factors. I'm not saying this is my view.
Yeah.
I think these are factors which are playing out. You combine this with politics. You combine
Right.
this with local politics. You combine with the racism which existed, the colonial racist mindset which existed. That's not gone, no. Then you
Right.
look at it, the religious factors, the evangelism.
Right.
After all, this
Right.
business of clash of civilizations and all comes out of which mindset?
Yeah.
It comes out of a religious mindset. You know, so there are many other factors which are playing up, and now they've been amplified by social media. Social
Yes.
media does its own amplification, and of course, you got the biggest megaphone in Trump. The Trump factor is you. I'm not joking. I think
Yes.
he's
Of course.
contributed a lot to this problem.
He is.
He
Yeah.
calls Mr. Modi his friend, and then he curses all Indians. He
Yes.
demeans all Indians. Okay, and that is picked up by his MAGA crowd.
Yeah.
Oh, those guys, even Elon Musk, he's also a right wing chap to a large
Yeah.
extent. Extreme right wing.
Yeah.
Their right wing and our right wing are at odds with each other.
Yeah.
There are a lot of fault lines in this story.
True.
So
True. Absolutely.
that is
Lots of
why this. Yeah, please. That is why you find that this thing is growing by the day. I mean, you
Right.
look at a guy like Tommy Robinson in
Yeah.
England. He is
Yeah.
not against Hindus, but you
Yeah.
go to Laura Loomer and all these fellows across, their thing. So there are divides within themselves. So all these
Right.
fault lines are crisscrossing.
Right.
And then you
Absolutely.
see a prosperous Indian society, which is one of the richest societies per capita in a place like USA, or for
Mm.
that matter in Canada, or for that matter in Australia. This is not, look at Canada. And then you find this Sardar element coming in, this all these Khalistanis who are loafing around. Then the Pakistanis come in and amplify your anti-Hindu hate,
Absolutely.
anti-Indian hate. So there are a lot of factors playing. I think there's my take on it. Yeah.
That I mean, fabulous. You actually set the ball rolling, and I want to ask Advaita this. Advaita, there was Shashi Tharoor was there in the US recently, and you remember that conversation he had where just about 3 days back, where he said he was talking to Democrats over there who said that not one Indian constituent approached them when this entire anti-India tirade was on. So I was just thinking. I mean, you have here an upwardly mobile Indian community, 4 million in the US, very prosperous, very strong. They're everywhere. They're in all the Silicon Valley. They're heading all these Silicon Valley companies. But when it comes to India, they're all quiet. They're like sheeple, as they say. Not one chew comes out of them when India is being targeted like that. So is this upwardly Indian mobile community, largely passive, worried about their, H-1B visas, worried about the fact that they can be, deported if they say anything? Is that what we're looking at? They're not organized. That's clear. It's become clear in the last couple of months at least.
Yes, I was a couple of weeks ago, I was chatting with a DC strategist, Washington DC strategist, and he was telling me, he said that the Indians are not really politically active in the
Right.
way that other communities are.
Okay.
Or even other countries. And I said, oh really? Because we see a Vivek Ramaswamy, we see someone like a Tulsi Gabbard who's a Hindu, in such high office, getting so much attention, and we feel like India's moment is coming. Or a
Right.
Ro Khanna, for example, in
Right.
California. So or the Indian American, sorry, their moment is coming. And he says, no, that's not how it works in DC. These guys are also part of the political process. They're also Americans first. They have to,
Hmm.
look after what the US needs and wants. He says the thing is that, first of all, the Indian American community has been predominantly pro-Democrats.
Right.
So they have voted en masse for, Democrats, and
Hmm.
not voted in those kind of numbers for Republicans. As
Right.
a result, you already have that inbuilt sort of distance, right?
Hmm.
Because they're not votaries of the Republican Party.
Right.
Okay, nonetheless, Republicans have come to power. They're doing well. More importantly, they've captured the culture. They've captured the cultural narrative, which
Right.
is very, very important anywhere in the world. It is to a large extent about the cultural narrative, and the right in the US has captured that. Their message, their conversations are resonating with people. Trump saw more African American voters, more Latina voters, or Hispanic voters than any other Republican president has ever seen. So
Hmm.
this is something that frankly goes a little beyond race. I've lived in the US. In fact,
Yeah.
the representative from the area where I lived is Marjorie Taylor Greene, who's sharp MAGA. So you can
Where
imagine.
Advaita, you were in where, Louisiana or one of
No,
the
Georgia.
Georgia?
I
My
was,
God,
yeah.
Bible
So that's
Belt,
the
isn't it?
Bible Belt, MAGA, rednecks. I hate that term because
Right.
I don't like it. I think it's racist. So uh, that sort of thing. Does impact the cultural narrative of the time. So
Hmm.
I think Americans really, the US is a country where you've got to stand up and be heard, or
Right.
you'll just get kept aside, like any
Yeah.
democracy. So I think, of course, the Indian Americans need to organize and be more assertive for themselves and
Right.
for their land of origin, not necessarily their country, but certainly their
Right.
land of origin, in the way that the Jews are for Israel, for example.
Yeah.
But I also think that we ourselves in India need to also function in cities like DC in a very different way. We can't just leave it all to our embassies. We need
Right.
individuals, we need companies that are out there, that are interacting, that are pushing our case, and essentially, lobbying. That's the term in the US. It's
Hmm.
entirely legal and it's practiced. And why you see Pakistan doing better than India is because they've been doing lobbying for a while. They've been there for a
Yeah.
while.
That's
Also
it.
remember, progressive media in America, like the New York Times, the Washington Post, constantly writes about India in a certain tone, which is, the sort of leftist, disparaging tone of India, Indians, and Hindus specifically, majoritarianism, racism towards our minorities, all those kind of things. So you're being mischaracterized in their most powerful
Hmm.
medias. So how will it not filter down to people?
Right. Yeah, a quick follow-on question, Advaita. I keep hearing this thing of how the American Jewish community is so well organized, and that's a fact. I mean, I have several friends in the American Jewish movement, and they're so well organized. There's nothing that they are a voice for Israel, for instance. Is it? Does it have to do with the fact? Is it a racial thing? Or is it that they've been there for much longer and therefore they've been able to politically organize themselves in a way that Indians have not?
No, I think it's a sense of complacency that we have in India. That's why we were colonized so many times. So it's
Uh,
almost like is a civilizational characteristic or temperament that we have, that
right.
we are like water, right? We mix with anything and everything,
Hmm.
and we're very happy and we're very proud about it. But the problem is that most of the world is, or the rest of the world rather, is not like that.
Yeah.
And it's good to be water, but it's
Yeah.
also good to have your own path and your own tributary, and where
Right.
that leads to. And I think that is important for us to find, and we already have it, but to actually flow on that path. That
Right.
doesn't mean getting into conflict with anybody. That's not important. Of course, the Jewish community in America, remember APAC, they're very well organized, Sandeep. They're very well organized, and they're very well funded. Now these are all very important things, because when you're funding institutions, you're funding political
Yeah.
candidates,
That's
you're
right.
lobbying in DC, you have lobbying firms, you're doing outreaches, you're keeping your Jewish community connected with their roots in Israel,
Right.
having all kinds of exchanges. Now our second and third generation Indian Americans are so deracinated from India.
Yeah.
They're not like connected to India in the way third, fourth
No,
generation
that's a very important
is
point.
connected to Israel.
Yeah, what you said actually, and Jan Shankar, I want to bring in on this. The fact that what Advaita said is that look, the American Jewish community, they are microscopic, right? The Jews in Israel, but they have a formidable force multiplier in the American Jewish community, which kind of stands up for them in a way that possibly the Indian community doesn't. It is a lesson for us. Look at the way the Chinese have done it, for instance. How quickly they have, the kind of links they've built up in the United States, in academia, in politics, in the lobbying firms, the technology connections. If we want to be the third largest economy, we can't put everything onto US embassy in Washington or some consul general over there. Is there a need to actually start spending, investing in the people to people, connects that Advaita has been talking about?
Look, one shouldn't be in a hurry in all these issues.
Hmm.
That's the first thing. And one shouldn't be reactive about it. You can hardly compare the Jews and and Israel with India. It's like comparing apples and oranges.
Right.
Right. And if you go into the actual reasons of why Jews have so much outsized thing, they control the finances.
Right.
The Wall Street is full of Jews. Okay. And, the purse strings of America are controlled by the Jews. You take all their, I mean, I don't have to say this, you hear from them only. So when you control the purse strings, you control the policy also.
Right.
The day will come when you start controlling it, then the policy will get controlled. It's a matter of time. Okay,
You
it
mean
is a
for
natural thing.
India to arrive there, we will have to kind of
Yeah, yeah,
go
yeah.
in.
It's okay. It's a matter of time.
Right.
And I don't think we can expect Indian Americans to behave the way we want the Jews behave.
Hmm.
In fact, Indian Americans of Indian origin are more American than Americans.
Right.
That's the way, and that's a truism not only for American Indians, but anywhere you go, that's the way our Indian mentality is. It's not. I've felt it. I've experienced it. So leave that out. I think we might be reading too much into the thing that we should get organized, this, that, and all that. Let things happen. They won't happen over one generation. They'll happen over 1, 2, 3 generations.
Hmm.
And you have to distinguish between what India does and what you expect Americans or Britishers or Australians of Indian origin to do. They're two different things altogether. Completely different. You don't. That's why I said the moment you start comparing yourself with Jews, you're in a different story altogether. The relationship between Israel and America is far different from the relationship between India and America.
Right.
Remember, we were on the opposite sides of a story. Even now, you're on the opposite sides of the story. For India and America to be on the opposite sides of the story is natural. Please understand this. Don't miss it out. It might be aspirational for many of our kids to go there and prosper, get a job, tech job, and all that. But fundamentally, politically, India and USA have been on the opposite sides of the story, whether it's Democrats or Republicans.
You mean, are you
It's
talking
only
of the Cold War era? Are you talking of the fact that we were
every
in
era. You take every era. This is a fact.
Hmm.
The Americans were never on your side. You look. Why go that far? Look
Yeah.
at 71. They were your enemy.
Yeah.
You had Nixon calling your prime minister a bitch.
Yeah.
Okay, right. So the fact is that it's not new. Today, Trump is doing it. Yeah,
Hmm.
let's be very clear. Trump is not our friend. So if the president of that country is not your friend, okay, what do you expect from the rest of the country? You can have 5 lobbying firms, all that. It's a waste of time. You have to understand India-US relationships is undergoing a huge change.
Hmm.
And this change will reflect itself at various levels, including what is happening now.
Right.
I look at it as a positive happening because it will force people to rethink whether America is your destination. If America is not your destination and India is your only destination, भाई कर्मभूमि तो तुम्हारा यहाँ है. So
Right.
you will be forced to develop. So far, we were under that comfort thing. Oh, we'll tackle with China and we'll take America's help. That's out. That's completely out.
Right.
We have to reimagine our own security, our own growth, our own everything. A fallout of this macro issue, geopolitical issue, is this. A fallout of the global demography problem, which I outlined in the morning, is what is happening now.
Right.
We'll have to go through this pain. Why should I lobby the president of America? कि भाई मेरे से अच्छा देख लो यार. Give him a kick. Haven't previous? No, I'm not joking. I'm being very serious. Haven't our previous governments done that when even if we were weak, we kicked out Coca-Cola.
Right.
And then Coca-Cola came running कि भाई हमें ले लो वापस. Many of you are not from that generation which didn't see Coca-Cola. I'm from that generation.
I'm
Okay.
also, I remember General Shankar and
Maybe.
Coca-Cola stopped.
Yeah, okay. Coca-Cola came back.
Yeah.
Okay, people talk of the civil nuclear deal. उसमें हुआ क्या? What has happened out of this great civil nuclear deal? Nothing happened.
$22
So
billion.
far, nothing has happened.
Yeah.
Zero. So, but your nuclear thing has grown. So you have to have that thing that India will grow without USA.
Right.
So we should stop bothering so much about USA. And when we bothered about USA, what did that fellow do? He went and sat in Pakistan's lap. And what did you do
Other way
yesterday?
around. I'm not sure if it's.
Okay, whatever you call it. What happened day before yesterday? There's, Shabaz Sharif and that other joker, Munir, went and took a photograph with that orange man.
Yeah.
And they were very happy about it. And he's also very happy about it. So if this is the overall
Yeah.
construct,
Yeah. Yeah.
how do you expect whether it's distrust, hate, mistrust, whatever you call it, not being against India? There is also inbuilt fear with them.
Right.
Please understand. Unfortunately, they've entangled with India now. They can't run away. All they've invested in India. If tomorrow they say we don't want India, take a goodbye here. We don't want to go. We don't send your boys there. Don't send your girls there. Okay, they have no choice but to come here. America will stop. The world will stop.
Right.
There's
You're
a
saying that
reality. India won't stop. See,
interdependence.
India won't.
Yeah.
No, India won't stop because there's nothing to go forward. In any case, it doesn't matter. We are so backward. I mean, that if you look at it from a different perspective, we'll struggle along. But definitely, USA will stop functioning. So will all their systems will collapse tomorrow.
Okay.
Okay.
Advaita, you
Now
believe
the
that's the
point
case?
is,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a fact. I mean, whether Advaita says or not is not the issue. That we are talking of fact. No, I'm not joking. This is not a matter of opinion. Look, this is
Yeah.
not a matter of opinion. This is a matter of fact.
Right.
The fact is, most of the systems get built here.
Hmm.
Okay, if not most, 50% of the systems get built here.
Right.
If that stops tomorrow, America will collapse. And people say we don't have leverage. We have leverage. We have agency.
Right.
Are we prepared to deploy it? Are we prepared to deploy the strength which we have? Like this, he says, I'll put tariffs. You put tariffs on that. And you'll see it with overnight things will change. You are right now, not being tough. Forget, why should I lobby this fellow? Yeah? Please tell me that.
So, Advaita,
I don't need this. Look, we have to accept 2-3 things in this fundamentally. Accept the fact that you will not grow at this 7-8% for 1, 2, 3 years. After that, you'll restitute. Go through some pain. Okay, you'll not anyway enjoy life without going through pain. Be prepared for it. Our predecessors did it.
right.
Mrs. Indira Gandhi told this joker to walk. Nixon. Okay. Yeah. People, we've told them many times. What happened after that? They came running back. No, they want us as a strategic partner. Trump doesn't want us as a strategic partner. Chalo bhai, aage badao. Unless
Advaita,
we have...
General Shankar, I'll just bring in Advaita. This,
Yeah.
Our 1971 moment, as General Shankar keeps saying, that it is time for us to now stand up and be noticed in the US and not to massage their ego. We've not massaged his ego so far, and I think that's what's kind of infuriated him. And also the other point is that you remember Advaita in the last couple of months with the US as indications of the MAGA camp, hitting out at Indians, especially Vivek Ramaswamy. Then the H-1B visas also came up. But now there seems to be a kind of a uniform Elon Musk, the H-1B supporter, is silent. The whole MAGA camp is united behind Trump. So, in a sense, Trump is reflecting the entire MAGA constituency, the MAGA base. And therefore, it's going to become harder for us as we move forward. What's your take?
Well, I mean, you have a midterm coming, so there is political expediency as well involved. So I wouldn't really, look too much into it at this point of time. A lot can change, and a lot does change. Trump, remember, is a very transactional president. He's not an ideological president. So one does not have to frame him in terms of ideology or race or faith-based or any of those things. He's very transactional. Pakistan is serving a purpose for him.
Right.
Personally, possibly, as they allege, with crypto and things like that, and as well as geostrategically. It's right next to Iran. It's, it had China kind of moving in very quickly. So there are a lot of factors that work for the Americans in terms of Pakistan because of its
Right.
geopolitical, strategic locations as well, and access to Central Asia, to Iran, to, stave China off, who's much more active there. So there are a lot of factors. It isn't like, Trump is doing this merely to, cock a snook at us. Not at all. Also, the world has changed since 1971. It's changed since the Cold War. It's become
Right.
a multipolar world. Most recently, you saw, imagine the United Kingdom agreeing to recognize Palestine,
Yeah.
right? You saw France doing it. The United Kingdom is such a close ally of the Americans, and the
Yes.
Jewish lobby is so forward and so assertive there, and yet you have something like this happening. So
Right.
the world is striking out on its own in different ways. Not only, us, but even England is saying, we have our own position on these issues and we're not going to be determined by what the Americans say. But also, what we must recognize that it is a superpower. It is the most powerful country in the world.
Yes.
China is a powerful country, but America is a country that we have more in common with.
Right.
We have a lot of people's exchange. We have democracy in common with them. We have diversity in common in them. We have to find those common paths. And look,
Right.
people keep talking about, oh, are we going to have a World War III? Are we going to have a World War III? And I always say we already have it. It's just coming in different forms. It's economic
Right.
warfare. It's cultural warfare. It's narrative warfare, which is far
Right.
more potent than any weapons can be. When you start narrative warfare, it travels around the world in a matter of seconds. It picks up resonance. It creates tribes out of people online, which filters down to tribes on the ground.
Hmm.
So this narrative warfare is very, very, very potent. And I think, this is where I feel, and I'm going to reiterate, that you have to work with countries in the systems that they are familiar with. And
Right.
if that system of in Washington, D.C. is one where you have to interact, engage, have conversations, push, advocate for certain things for your own country, then that's what you have to do. See, if we're a huge market for the Americans, then the Americans also bring value to us in terms of our economic growth. We don't have
Right.
to take this, to the extremes and say your way or my way. We can
Hmm.
find a middle ground. And I think we should find a middle ground as the oldest and the largest democracy in the world. It suits both of us. And Trump,
Right.
yes, he's a maverick. Okay. I would go so far as to say today H1B is an issue. 6 months from now, it just may not be. You don't know with him. Like we didn't anticipate this coming, you don't know with him. He is catering to his base. And that's
Right.
really what he's doing. Our politicians in India do it all the time. And
Yeah.
we should expect politicians in the West to do it as well.
Right. No, in fact, very interesting points, Advaita. And the fact is, I think they're more closely aligned to their core vote base, the MAGA base, and they have a connect with them, and they kind of reflecting what's going on over there. And as General Shankar said, that there are huge demographic changes. I mean, there's tectonic demographic changes, and the new generation of Indians may not be integrating the way that their fathers or their grandfathers did, and that is seen in social media. I mean, I have a friend staying in Europe, and she just sent me, and she's of Indian origin, and she sent me all those videos and says that, oh, Indians never assimilate. Look what they're doing in our streets. Look what they're putting in our rivers. All of those things. They're not assimilating. They're not being the nice, quiet, within the four walls of the house Indians that their fathers and grandfathers were. I think they're going out and they're seen more openly than
You know,
their
you know,
previous.
Sandeep, some things we cannot, take away from the US, in the sense that race is so deeply embedded in their culture. I have a 6-year-old nephew who goes to little kindergarten school, and the other day he sent me a school project, and it was kids, drawing out their faces, and
Right.
he has a very multicultural classroom. But I found it adorable that his face was totally brown. So it was
Okay.
colored brown. And I was like, at such a young age, they've become so familiar with the color of their skin, for example.
Right. Right.
This is the sort of leftist slash liberal definitions which are coming to roost now,
Right.
in societies. And absolutely, demographic change is a huge factor. My friend, I've mentioned him earlier to you as well, who's American, who's white male, and he says, I look at my kids' class pictures, and I just don't understand what's happening. And he's not racist, but
Mm.
there is that tendency to feel like, what's happening in my land, what's happening
Yeah.
to our culture, to our identity.
Right. And
Yeah.
General Shankar, the other thing is that we are also such a large demographic online, social media thing. I mean, there are what, 700, 800 million Indians on social media. So anything you put out there is guaranteed viewership, guaranteed responses. If there's, anything that you tag Indians and put it out there, you will get feedback, you will get your traction. You think that's also partly fueling this entire social media
Yeah.
obsession we have?
No,
We are an
the social media itself is a huge divisive element in this whole story.
Right.
Okay, and these days you see social media politicized. Every political party has its own social media. Like
Right.
Truth Social is a personal social media which has become popular.
Right.
It is heavily biased. So social media has also taken on, sides, if
Right.
I say. And then, like Advaita said, it's the most consequential country, US rich country. It was what fine. The fact is, it's a divided country. No, I'm not joking.
No, it is.
I
It is, of
agree
course.
with what she said. It's a heavily divided country. The US I learned of and then went and stayed in sometime, 15 years back to what it is today is completely different. People are different. I mean, one couldn't think of a presidential candidate talking of trans rights as something very important. While it is an important factor, but it's not, at that level. The point is that societally, that country has changed. And fundamentally, that country itself is a troubled country. If you look at its own history, okay, it's a very troubled country. It's a country of migrations. And, there's a book, everyone remembers Samuel Huntington for his book, Clash
Yeah.
of Civilizations. Okay?
Yeah.
You must read a book called Who Are We?
Right.
It's about America. He says, what is American? There's nothing American because the chap who's American has been either exterminated along with all the bisons and all those buffaloes, or he's sitting in a reserve. Period. The original American doesn't exist, he's extinct. So who are they? Do they have an identity?
Right.
Is that white American the guy who's an Anglo-Saxon or a Germanic chap or a French guy or a Mexican or a Spaniard, or what is he? Or all the derivatives, all those slave trades which they did. It might be not great to talk about it, but that's their history. If you look at their civil war, you see why did that civil war take place? This is the country which fought with itself
Yeah.
and
That's true.
massacred each other. Right? This is the country which didn't respect each other till as late as 60s. There were no adult suffrage for a long time. So what are we talking of? When you go that route, look, America is not your ideal. Okay, it's not never anyone's ideal. It might be the biggest democracy. That's about all. But
Right.
it's got its own flaws. It's not the ideal democracy. The problem is all those American, because they've established narratives, they've established media, they have control and all. These rags like, New York Times and Washington Post who have dominated the whole thing treat others like this thing. They don't look at themselves. And we like fools start respecting them. You have to take them for what it's worth. Whether it is a right-wing channel like Fox or a left-wing channel like, CNN, you take it for what it's worth and do what you're supposed to do.
Right.
We have to find our own space. Okay, as we grow, we can't be denied our space. Right? Let's not bother. And whether if there's hate, come back. You don't have to go there. I mean, that I have very simplistic solutions on this.
No, it's a good
But for
point.
the, come back
Janshankar.
here. Why do you want to listen to that fellow? Didn't Gandhiji come back from there and gave you liberty here?
Keep
No,
calm and carry
that's our
on.
history. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You get what you want from that society. I'm not saying don't go there and don't study. Go there, learn technology, come back and build India.
Hmm.
Okay. We have to change our attitudes. In fact, to a large extent, I think our government has done well by being showing restraint. You
Yeah.
know, our government has not done anything which has not shown restraint. Our government is in the hope that there'll be a better day with America tomorrow.
Yeah.
But the fact is, the track record suggests it is not there. It's never been happening.
Oh,
The fact is that it's never happened. That's history. Yeah. Even in the best of times, it didn't happen. Even with the Biden administration, you had so many problems. They said no to everything. So what are we talking about? What is the strategic relationship? One thing, what Trump has done is good. There's no strategic relationship left. If there's a problem with the people-to-people contact, all this thing which we are talking, oh, we have people-to-people contact, we are similar, we are democracies and all that. If you had people-to-people contact, if the democracy is mature enough to understand each other, where is this hate coming from?
right.
What is this hate coming from? So there are factors which are happening which we need to realize. As India grows, like you started, as India grows, India has to sort out not only the geopolitical problems, you have to sort out your demographic problems, you have to sort out your societal problems. Right? We have no choice. And we have to evolve into our own systems. And again, I go back to what the Prime Minister said. Right? We have to have our own systems. We have to our own media. We have to own our own, Googles. We have to own our own,
Yeah.
Twitters. The solution for all these problems lies in India. To that extent, I mean, I'm completely anti-Chinese for many reasons, right? Because I've seen China only from across the LOC. I've not gone, my view is colored. But I still admire them for having gone independent and being, that firewall, whatever they've done. They've kept America out of their internal
Great
affairs.
firewall of China, they call it.
Yeah, let's build it. And you
Yeah.
have the capability to build it. Who's stopping you? You invest into this. Next generation will produce its own fighters.
Right.
But
Advaita,
yeah.
this is it time for a great Himalayan firewall for India to create its own ecosystem? Right now the most powerful Indian media moguls are the ones who sit in Silicon Valley and control all narratives and algorithms, right? And this is something that we haven't invested. The most powerful tool of narrative warfare are social media platforms, and this is something we've not done. However many speeches we may have given or heard, no Indian social media platforms.
Yes, we haven't. There have been attempts, as you know, but no, there haven't been anyone adopting it. No one's really adopted it. So we've sort of gotten hooked to the big,
Including the
large,
government of India. That one
including the
social
government.
media platform that we come back to that one thing. Koo
Yeah.
laga diya as an alternative to Twitter, but even the government of India was not on Koo.
Exactly. These guys are like way ahead now, in terms of reach, in terms
Yeah.
of dissemination, all of those things are there. But
Ghar mein ghus
but
gaye.
I think the Chinese played the Americans so well. Basically, the Americans got played by the Chinese because
Yes.
they looked in the 90s at the Chinese as something where they could outsource all the grimy work to and get finished products in the US. And it was a wonderful, sort of arrangement. And what you had was the Chinese bit their tongue and went ahead and did that for 20 odd years and then sort of started emerging into themselves. Now you have
Right.
a situation where TikTok is in the US. And this is why I say the Americans still have leverage. Like Trump was threatening that he'll ban TikTok. In India, we already
Yeah.
have. And Trump is not in a great position to ban TikTok because so many Americans are on it. And it's also a form of livelihood for a lot of people, like millions of
Yes.
people. So it wasn't going to be an easy decision. If he said, I'm going to ban TikTok, there would have been people in the streets. And you already have an environment where people are on the streets. So how they leverage their power and made sure that they were able to negotiate a deal with TikTok so that the
Yeah.
controls rest with them, is really their way of displaying dominance in the globe, in a sense, which is not through wars or anything of that sort, but just pure transactional negotiation. And I
Right.
think that's a lesson to learn from them, is like, you have to be in a position where you can negotiate for your country to your benefit, and be able to do it across the table, and when you need to, like in these sort of present situations. So the world is changing so fast, and we have to keep up. We have to be in the mix, not only in the mix in terms of global summits, but in the mix when it comes to narratives, when it comes to interactions, when it comes to
Yeah.
understanding each other, when it comes to pushing our narrative, our agenda for India, because no country can exist in isolation. No matter how
Right.
strong you are, no matter who you are, you can't. It's impossible. So we have to recognize that fact. If I don't even look at Pakistan as a parallel, really, because they're a smaller country. They're a country that is disintegrating in front of us. I don't even care about them so much. I look at more from the perspective of how are we positioning ourselves for the next 25 years. Are we going to get sidelined? Are we going to drive issues that concern us and get deals that are preferable for us? See, we can't be sly like the Chinese, right?
Yeah.
We can't keep quiet. We're too diverse. We're a democracy. People are going to speak up. There's going to be criticisms. All of that is going to come with it. China can take a position and everybody has to just toe the line in China.
As to
That's
fall
not
in
the
line.
case.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not the case in India. So we have to devise our own path wherein we can keep our voice, where we can have our disagreements, and yet get the job done for the country.
Right.
And that's the way forward.
Absolutely. And on that note, I just want to open it up to questions. We've got a couple of questions here. And Arun Varghese talks about anti-India sentiment existing everywhere, not only in the colonial world or the US, it's there in Africa, Latin America, and also in India's neighborhood. Now it should be accepted as a natural consequence of rise. General Shankar, natural consequence of India's rise?
Yeah, it's a fact. You'll encounter it many levels. You'll encounter it at local level. You'll encounter it at international level. You'll this thing. Deal with it. I mean,
Deal
I
with it.
would say deal with it. Prepare it. You need to prepare for it. You need to prepare for it. That's the more important thing. It's not
Roll with
just
the
going to the
punches.
embassy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can take the next question. It's a very simple thing.
Next question, Advaita, is some Nepalis hate India because of Indian expansionist mindset. India thinks of its neighbors as something lost from India. You want to take that?
Well, I mean, the real expansionist on their border is China. So it is easy for them to kind of turn on us and say, like, you're the expansionists, because we say, we understand each other linguistically as well. We
Right.
share so many commonalities. So, it's natural because that we'll communicate things in a certain way. Also, we have to stop like acting like we're perfect. We're not. We're not perfect. We can be bullies, we can be loud, we can be all those things that put people off. We can do those things. Important thing is, yes, I again reiterate, it's not only about the United States. When I lived in Myanmar, in Burma, they said, your country doesn't engage at all with us, and
Right.
we're so close by. And I was surprised at the amount of Indian influence there, in food, in entertainment, in culture also. And the fact that we had so many of our greats incarcerated in Rangoon and in
Yeah.
Burma and
Of course.
Mandalay and things like that. So there has been a tendency wherein we have become too inward looking, and we're too focused on ourselves and our flexing within our borders. I think we have to reach out to other nations, other countries as well, and talk to them and have conversations and be there. Prime Minister Modi's done a remarkable job in terms of getting India out into the world, and now there has to be a trickle down and a follow through on that getting out into the world. Remember,
Right.
Big countries don't become big countries because they have only military power or they only have economic power. No, those are not. They also have cultural power. They also have people to people power, and those are aspects I think that we have not developed as much as we need to.
Right. Absolutely. In fact, smart power, as they call it, not just hard power or soft power, but smart power.
The
BS
other
wants
thing,
to.
the other thing, Sandeep, I think it's very
Yes.
important to communicate to the
Agree.
Americans that when our people go to their country, like in the tech jobs and things like that, frankly, it's the best of our people who are going. That's why we call it the brain drain here. So
Yes,
they shouldn't
absolutely.
feel like we're sending our discards to the US or we're sending criminals to the US, like Trump goes on and on and on. It's
About the
important that we
immigrants, the illegal
communicate the
immigrants.
fact.
That's right.
Yes, that the most intelligent, the brightest from our country
Yeah.
are going there. And that's a problem for us as well, not just for them.
It is, and General Shankar keeps talking about the fact this brain drain. Our best engineers are going out of India. They're working in the US. Of course, they're doing stuff for India as well. But VS's question is on similar line. I don't understand why we expect American Indians to speak for India. In our mind, we think they're Indians, but they are Americans. Just their ethnicity is Indian. We better understand that. General Shankar?
Yeah, I agree with him completely. We shouldn't get over, we shouldn't rely on anyone outside our country. Very simple. Why we
Right,
should be able to stand on your own feet.
right.
Okay. I mean, we have no choice.
We
And
have
one.
to.
And
Yes.
number, we have to. Second, you don't have a need.
Hmm.
I am a little against the principle that we have to go and appease this fellow Trump anymore.
Right, right,
He didn't behave well with us. We don't have to behave well with him. Very
right.
fundamentally simple.
That's
Okay.
that
And
principle of reciprocity in diplomacy.
reciprocity. You don't have to. Let's not even hope for a better relationship with USA.
Right.
Tell them that. You should tell them. By enough is enough. I mean, actually, in a way, we've said when they said don't buy Russian oil, we said okay, we don't buy Russian oil. We'll buy oil from Iran
Iran and Venezuela.
in Venezuela. So we have to tell them what they are, and they are not the only country in the world. There are 192 other countries in the world. They don't rule everyone. This is not an empire. Okay, this is not the fourth reach also,
Right.
right? And one important thing I'd like to put across. I mean, this is my view, and I hold it very firmly. India's time has come.
Hmm.
Okay, irrespective of whether it is BJP, Congress, TMC, or DMK, whoever is at the center,
Right.
Indians can't be stopped. Period.
This can't be
Because
stopped.
when a people get aspirational
Yeah.
and people want progress, okay,
Yeah.
they'll progress. Culture, will all fall in line. All will fit itself.
Right. Maybe
And
that's
you
what's
will have
happening.
your
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
you will have your own problems. Okay, right? There is a very great fault line developing within us about Hindu, anti-Hindu, North, South. These are things which are being discussed more than necessary, more than what I used to hear, say, 20 years back. This is a problem which we have to face as we grow up,
Yeah.
as we progress, as we develop economically, as we develop culturally. Because as we develop economically, our cultural development seems to be going down,
Hmm.
right? Seems to get more angular and more sharp and more focused towards or a particular ethnicity or culture and all that.
Right.
That we have to sort out within it. We have our own issues, but
Yes.
overall, you can't be stopped.
Right.
That's the fundamental thing. We are a land of huge resources. We underestimate ourselves.
Right.
There's a saying, there's a thing which I read somewhere, a Canadian view of what America is. He says, look, living next to uh, America is like sleeping with a bear. The bear might be nice and it might be docile, it might be loving. But when you sleep next to a bear, it doesn't matter which side it turns, you still get crushed.
Right. That's
Okay,
good
today
analogy.
it is India is getting to that. We don't know that we are getting to be that bear status.
Hmm.
And people around understand this. yesterday also I spoke in a different context, but today I'll speak in this context of, in China, I read an article. This was in Mandarin. I translated it and read it. And he says, look, India is now becoming the fifth pole. That's his view, fifth pole.
Right.
Now, the first pole being, I would say in order, but the other
Right.
poles being China, USA, Russia,
Yeah.
and EU, and fifth pole being India. They've said, he's argued these are the factors which are making India the fifth pole, and these are the factors which are not so great, which is a normal thing. But the concept that India has to be getting to be a fifth pole
Right.
is important.
Yes.
Some time back, there was a concept which is again came from China. It came from China, which said India is the third pole.
Right.
Interesting. And there's one, cartoon which I keep showing to everyone, where Biden, Xi Jinping, Putin, and Narendra Modi are at four corners tearing it apart, the world, or pulling it apart. And this cartoon is made in China.
Right.
By a Chinese. And I
Right.
keep showing it in every one of my podcasts.
Yes.
So you take this, concept of being a third pole or the fifth pole, or one of the poles, the top four poles. This is a Chinese thinking. Section average karo, 3 plus 4 plus 5 by 3. You still come to where? You come to 4. So you're one of the poles in this world. And as you
Yes.
keep growing up, you have to adjust to that fact. This adjustment, the world has to do with us, we have to do with ourselves, and we have to do with the world. It's a three-way process.
Absolutely.
It's not just military, it's not cultural, it is not economic, it's a sum total of everything. And for
Right.
that, we need good leadership. You need a lot of things. Okay? And this is a process we'll have to go through. And
We'll have
nothing to
to-
be worried about. This little business of hate, fate, and all is very little. It will happen. And we have to take action accordingly.
Right. You have to take there's a next question here from Srinivas Kambampati. Salute, sir. Namaste to all. Lobbying will expose us to the inconvenience and the obligation of listening to their demands. Natural tendency is self-interest. Your views. Advaita, since you raised that question of lobbying, do you think it's really important for us? Does this actually expose us to the United States, make us more vulnerable, or is this in India's interest that we must have lobbyists in the US?
No. I mean, the world is transactional, right? So you give some, you get some. That's the way the world works. You don't only get without giving, and you don't only give without getting. It's as simple as that. That applies to relationships, interpersonal relationships. That applies to work situations. You work, you get paid. If you don't work, you don't get paid, you get fired. So that's the way it is between countries as well. And I think it's important we don't get too sentimental about all this. I'm not advocating some like great brotherhood across nations. I don't think that that's possible in a multipolar world with competing interests and countries like ours rising. It's not possible, right? But what we can do is find common ground and find common ground where we both benefit. And I think that's important. And understand things also from the other perspective. If you visit the US often enough, as I do, and have for the last couple of decades, regularly, you see a certain decline in that country. Okay, from the superpower that it was in the 90s, because the Cold War had just
unchallenged superpower, the unchallenged superpower.
Unchallenged. There was a swagger. There was a certain, you can feel it in the country. The infrastructure, the developments, the swag in the conversations, the educational institutes, all of that. Through the years, what I've noticed is the decline, the very visible decline of this country. Not only just in terms of infrastructure, that's visible, but even in terms of the educational institutions, in terms of lifestyle of the average American. So there is anxiety in that country as well. And another thing I want to say is that let's step out of this victimhood narrative. We understand that there are issues. We understand that there are prejudices. If you deep dive into any community, okay, Italian Americans for the longest time were thought to be all mafioso, right? They were all thought to be Italian mafia mob bosses. So they face that prejudice. Chinese Americans face prejudice of a different kind, especially post COVID. Indian Americans face prejudice of a different sort. So every community, irrespective of the color of their skin, is facing this kind of prejudice. It's not just us, it's how we deal with it.
Right. Absolutely. On that note, I want to end this discussion. So fascinating Saturday morning spent in understanding this. It's not just us. We may be the largest community out there, but there are others as well. And there are several other communities that have actually gone through what we are going. And, as General Shankar says, you just have to, roll with the punches, keep calm, carry on, because India's rise is inevitable. And on that note, I want to thank both my panelists, General Shankar, Advaita Kala. What a fascinating discussion this has been. And to all our viewers, please keep tuning in every Saturday, 9 a.m. Indian Standard Time. I promise you won't be disappointed, because the kind of debate that you'll get over here, you're unlikely to see these perspectives on any other channel. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.